been a busy October in Saskatchewan agriculture. Obviously, crops coming off and farmers are putting away after what we hope is a pretty good harvest. But we can grow it, but if we can't get it to market, it's not much good. And that's where people like Dean McQueen and Viterra come into play. So Dean, thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Tell us a little bit about your role and Viterra's role in the chain here.
Sure. My name is Dean McQueen, and I'm the Vice President of Merchandising and Transportation for Viterra. So what that means is my people really buy and sell the commodities that the farmers grow, and then we move it to destination markets around the world. It's we call it a pipeline. So it's from farmer to an end-use customer somewhere around the globe.
Right. So in terms of Viterra's position in the market right now and in terms of the agriculture cycle, tell us a little bit about what your interactions with producers are.
Yeah, it's been a fairly decent fall from a weather standpoint, so the farmer's been able to get his crop off in fairly decent time. So obviously we're having lots of discussions about the markets, movement on grain, and what the future holds coming out of harvest this year.
So it's been obviously a year for everybody with COVID-19 and the uncertainties that come along with that. Tell us a little bit about how that shows up in the business that you're in.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic to say the least. I mean, obviously you've got core commodities that have steady, consistent demand year in, year out, month in, month out. But there's been definitely spikes or troughs within certain commodities. You look at malt barley, for example. Export demand's been fairly robust, but North American demand is down, obviously, with bars and restaurants closed for several months or weeks. That demand has been definitely impacted and affected. Other commodities like durum and oats, for example, are great examples of how this has transpired. So people are looking for things that have long shelf life. So pasta will sit on your shelf for quite a few months and not go bad. People loaded up on that right at the start of COVID. We've actually seen that continue as a fairly common trend here through this. Oats going into cereal bars, cereals, granola bars. Those things are also seen really good spikes in demand over the last number of months.
So it doesn't actually take too many steps along the chain to figure out how Saskatchewan producers are actually growing the commodities that go into helping the world and our own neighborhoods through all this.
No,
COVID.
Exactly right. You see things that are grown out in the field just outside the city here, ending up on a dinner plate or on a store shelf in the near future. That's for sure.
Well, and so tell me a little bit about the changes that happen in the world marketplace around COVID or demand, no matter what the situation is,
right.
And how far away from the Saskatchewan producer Farmgate does that really end up?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of change and a lot of volatility in the market. I'll call it that, and it's like I alluded to with the North American market. There's a lot of domestic demand, obviously here, but our big demand is offshore, and the impact was they had the COVID, especially in Asia, hit earlier than we did here, so there was some muted demand, but the recovery's also been really quick and probably better than ours, and that impact has been shown that their demand has been really, really good the last number of months. So you can see that it really depends on how you deal with the COVID situation or how your country is dealing with it. It really impacts the demand that comes from that. We run a fairly significant planning phase in our business, right from obviously the Farmgate to our vessels that show up in Vancouver or Thunder Bay or Montreal to go to those export destinations. And it's generally 5 weeks out that we plan from that grower standpoint. And if you have those spikes in demand, it's tough to meet them in a nearby shipping window. But if it's longer term type things that are going to be consistent and continue on, we can plan better for it. So while we can try and sneak in a spot shipment, it's not always that easy to do because we've got to line up a lot of trucks to come in to fill that train, or those 6 trains to fill that Panamax vessel that's going to go across the ocean to a destination market.
Yeah, so a huge part of your business is around logistics and actually getting that stuff to somewhere that it can then get to market itself.
Absolutely. It's one of the things we pride ourselves on. Logistics is the number one piece of our business and the number one focus for our business. It's easy to sell grain. It can be easy to buy grain, but the logistics in the middle are really what enables you to be successful. It builds that relationship with the farmer on the front end, but also your end user on the back end, that you've got a seamless supply chain that you you can execute in the windows that you've told them you can.
And so having said all that, so what are some things that you would like producers to know about setting themselves up well to take advantage of that logistics work that you guys are doing?
Yeah, obviously it's been an interesting year. You've seen a lot of commodity markets rally in the teeth of harvest, which is not normal in most years, but it's a great opportunity for selling. Obviously, nearby demand has been mostly filled up for us, especially, and there are great opportunities out the forward curve. Obviously, there's carries in the market and in a lot of the commodities with futures components to them. So there's good opportunities for selling in the forward months. Obviously, taking into account what's coming at us, we've got Southern Hemisphere harvests that are just around the corner, with Australia coming on, just starting right now, actually, in a very small way, but we'll pick up in earnest over the next couple of months, followed by South American harvest. So, there are good opportunities. Don't miss them, because there are competitive markets coming to the market here that will put pressure on prices potentially. The other thing is, the winter months, obviously the railroads have a lesser ability to move. Things don't work in 40 below real well. So the supply of rail cars is down by about 25% from December through March. So that window of opportunity is smaller in those months than it is today, or in the forward curves. So lastly, you really just don't want to get stuck with that grain on your farm and be playing the game of trying to market your grain and get it delivered in, April and May when you're trying to do your field work. And then obviously, as you come out of that spring period, you've got the European harvest and Black Sea harvest that definitely competes with us. They bring stuff to market very, very quickly and at lower prices than we can produce it for. So those are some cautionary things that I'd be wanting to get out to farmers today.
Sure. Well, at least it's shaping up like we won't be taking off this year's crop next spring like we did this last year. So I think at least we've got a little bit of flexibility there.
No, you're not kidding. It's been remarkably different. Obviously, we were saddened by the unfortunate heat that we had as the crop was finishing that took the top off the yield, I'll call it. But at the same time, it sure cleaned up a lot of the disease and off quality and drying requirements that we had this last year. It was tough on the entire industry to meet some of our quality requirements for end-use customers, for one thing, but also to deal with the tough and damp grain and get it in a timely manner for that 5-week plan that we work on. That it was a tough year for everyone, and I think a homogeneous crop is something that most of us are happy about.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Yeah, I had one more question for you, and it's about the relationship with farmers that you talked about. And in a year like this, where Viterra is obviously a big part of Farm Show, Viterra is a part of Agribition as well, and as those kind of gatherings for producers and businesses in agriculture have sort of gone by the wayside in this environment, talk to me about the importance of keeping up that relationship with farmers and how you're doing that in this time.
Yeah, no, it's so important. Obviously, those shows are a big venue for farmers and our procurement reps to be out talking, discussing market opportunities, discussing what they've got on farm, when they want to move it, those type of things. So we're doing more online type things, obviously telephone conversations. We're looking to have grower meetings virtual as opposed to in a meeting room or a town hall somewhere. We have to adapt. The farmers understand that. We want everybody to be safe. But definitely with the relationships we have, we value those farmers' inputs and their voice. So we want to make sure that we are in front of them and present with them as much as we possibly can be, despite the times that we're in right now.
Yeah, well, excellent work. I'm sure farmers and producers across all of Canada appreciate the work that you're doing, but I think I can speak for you and I and the entire industry that we look forward to getting back to doing it in person too when that allows. So,
absolutely.
Ian McQueen, thanks very much.
Thank you, Chris.